Hey, so Charlie Grant, singer, songwriter, guitarist, and mentor personally to me for my projects, asked a couple of questions earlier. The first one being, is there something maybe freeing and liberating about restrictions when you're doing a production? And the other one being, how do you know when a track is finished? That's an even more tricky question. So I'm going to attempt to humbly answer this and weigh in the spirit of online sharing. So to try and answer the restrictive thing, I think there is a real power in having restrictions. Like the acts of old in the analog era were by necessity bound by restrictions. So few tracks to work with, so few sounds that could be conjured up. A lot of it literally from pedals and amplifiers. They didn't have a whole board of options now that you would have even today as an amateur. Today you buy a digital audio workstation and maybe grab a bunch of free plugins that you can get here and there across the internet, and you will have too many things to work with before you even go out and buy this, that and the other extra things. And some people get into this whole thing where they just keep buying more stuff and they don't know what to use. And I think there's a real power, it could be argued, in getting good at and really refining yourself in the things that you do own, rather than this keep seeking mentality of I better buy more plugins. And I'm not saying just use the stock stuff, of course, you know, if you really fancy some stuff then buy it, but really figure out how to get the best out of that stuff as well, you know, in productions. Maybe use it a few more times, restrict yourself to those things. It's interesting when I see the producer open up, say, a plugins channel, and you see all the settings of like 200 things on this list, and you think, you've never listened to most of these things in your life. You can't have. And it's like, oh, I wonder what that one is. And we try it and we listen and it makes me sound all funny and we have a laugh and we go, okay, right. Oh, I wonder what that one is. He's not just going like down the list like that. He's literally just going down and seeing what visually grabs him, you know. Oh, that's a strange one. I've not tried that before. But, oh, okay, haha. And on this goes until you find something. Okay. Yeah, we like that. Decisions. So you're making definite decisions as you go in the production. That's a healthy thing to do. And of course, you are saving it as an alternative version in your DAW, hopefully that way, so that you can step back if you really need to, or just turn a plug-in off, more likely. And those definite decisions, however, just keep you going and keep you focused. Now, maybe if you're one of these kind of artists, you will have the sound in your head of what you think the song sounds like when it's finished. Like you can imagine it playing on TV to you, right? And you can hear it. And this is a phenomena that happens sometimes with artists. And unfortunate part of that phenomena is the finished song doesn't usually ever sound like what they heard in their head. It can happen, I hear, but hey. And if you can hear it in your head, then maybe you can hear what sort of elements you can hear in that song, or the elements you definitely hear in there. So I think restricting yourself in some ways to just some things that you know work, where you say, yes, this is fine, we'll just use this, we'll just use, you know, these few we find, and we'll just work with this fairly limited palette. The other thing is you may have too many instruments, you know, too many things to go with. And do all those instruments even work together? Do they live together in the same universe, so to speak, you know? Do they paint the same kind of aesthetic picture on the audio canvas? Or do they contrast against each other? I've got a song coming up called The Visitor, and it actually uses all of these contrasts on purpose. So, you know, it's got the steel kind of slide guitar, and then it's got the acoustic kind of thing happening, yet it's got synthesizers and crazy drums mixed with an 808 kit and other stuff, because it's a song about creativity. So it's all over the place. So it's slightly meta and it's tongue-in-cheek, and it's, you know, it's an album track anyway. But anyway, usually you want like a particular landscape to paint with, right? So I think one of the things that can really help with that is having reference tracks. Really, really handy. So when you bring a song to a studio and to your producer, unless you're self-producing, then still do this. You want reference tracks, 2 or 3 or, you know, however many that you feel. Tracks that you think kind of fit the kind of sonic spectrum of the song that you've done here, and the kind of sounds that you may reach for. And I think that can be really helpful, you know, and I think it will help your decisions. You don't necessarily have to feel like you'll be accused of copying those songs, because especially if you're using 2 or 3, if you get close in some ways to some elements, then because it's 2 or 3 different things, nobody can really see the sources in the same way, because they've been filtered out through each other and cross woven. And the other thing being that you don't necessarily have to capture that sound exactly. It can just give you the kind of effect or the kind of end effect you're going for, or it's a type of plugin that does that kind of thing to the voice and places it in this kind of way in the mix, and that sort of thing. And so to answer the question of how do you know when a track is actually finished, well, again, I think, you know, if you've got those reference tracks in place, that's probably really helpful in some respects. But, you know, it's been said before that art is never finished, only abandoned. And you've got this danger where you can just end up keep adding and adding and adding to it, with any art in fact, until you've added too much and you've just weighed it down, you've bogged it down with just unnecessary stuff. Too many harmonies, too many extra instruments all muddying up the mix, and just crazy, right? So there has to be a separation. The other thing you can do is, I think you could maybe just start randomly soloing tracks in places, or try listening back with a track soloed, and you could say, do I miss it? What about here? Do I miss it? You know, and then if you don't miss it, then what's it doing there? Even, you know, those kind of things. And I think once you've done it a few times, I think you build up a bit of a perspective, like an awareness that this sort of thing can happen. So as long as the elements of the audio spectrum are being filled by those kind of roles, you know, that the deep kind of sounds and the high sounds and the mid sounds, and they're all together functioning the way you want, then you've probably got enough stuff in there, especially if your reference tracks only do that. Of course, you may have a song that's really sparing, in which case you'd have, you know, even fewer pieces to it than that. So can't give a very definite answer, but can sort of wax a little bit about it. I hope that was of help in some way. I'll see you at the next one.